We created this massive seating chart. So it was 10 feet high, about 20 feet long, where all the tables were broken down to each person. However, what we did not know, my team and I did not know, is that our client was still allowing people, even the day of, to attend the gala.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen Santos, and this is Mayhem and Method, where event pros tell the real story of what happened and what it reveals about how events actually work. I'm here today with my guest, Andrew Roby of Andrew Roby Events. He is an event planner and producer, and I am so glad you can be here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I want to start with one of the most important questions for event planners, which is, what are your favorite shoes?
I love that question. So off guard. I was not expecting that. I actually love my Air Max high tops, Nike Air Max, because it feels like I'm floating on water or floating in the air because they're just so light and I can use them, especially when setting up and running around for very long days. So yes, must haves.
Got it. Do you have a color preference? Are you the standard black or do you venture out?
We wear any and everything. I do not prefer to be always in black, especially on event day. We like to blend in. So I just let my team wear whatever they're comfortable in.
Amazing. I wish more people did that. So let's go ahead and dive into your story, your kind of disaster story, right? Or your mayhem story, since the podcast is named Mayhem and Method. So tell me about the big incident and what happened. Like, just walk me through that, spend a couple of minutes, and then from there, we'll kind of like back up through time to figure out what happened before what happened. And granted, we can never be in the heads of other people. Probably don't ever want to be. But Let's talk about kind of what can we figure out from that and like what have we done differently going forward. So I hand it over to you to tell us your story.
I have a couple of mayhem stories, but I'll give you one. We were doing a multi-day conference, and our conference also had an award ceremony embedded into that conference. And so we've done plenty of galas, we've done plenty of award ceremonies, so we understand, everything from presentations to speakers, musicians, and entertainment and all that. But because with a conference was being the main element, we had to make sure that we had the proper seating charts for our gala and awards ceremony, because most conferences are just free for all, free seating open. But this one we had to explain to our client that if you're doing a gala and you have sponsored tables and other guests who are coming in that weren't part of the conference, then it needed to have assigned seats or at least assigned tables. And so what we did is we created this massive seating chart, sort of like a step and repeat, but it was built as a seating chart. So it was 10 feet high, about 20 feet long, where all the tables were broken down to each person, knowing where they're going to be able to sit. So as we did registration and check people in, with QR codes, they just walked over to, the seating chart, saw their name, saw their table, and was able to go and have a seat. However, what we did not know, my team and I did not know, is that our client was still allowing people, even the day of, to attend the gala. And it was an hour before the gala started where we were just now told, hey, the list that we gave you all and we approved, prior to this has been changed. Here's the new list. So for us, the seating chart has already been printed. The BEO banquet order has already been submitted, to catering, so they know exactly what everybody's eating, for that particular award ceremony. So we were a little confused as to why we were being able to, given a list. Then 30 minutes later, here's another list, here's some changes, and we're like, okay, we're now having to check people in and then also adjust the catering and then try to make sure that all the new people knew where they were seating at, because the seating chart had already been done. So we're trying to manage this as best as we can. But our my directions to my team was, hey, we need to get everybody who has assigned, they're already on, has assigned seating to go and sit. And then everyone who doesn't find their names on the seating chart will have a dedicated person to figure out where they're going to be seated, because we didn't want people to go to the wrong table or to go to a table that had too many people there. So then, as people were coming up to be checked in, people were showing us emails from our client side that was saying, hey, you're allowed to come. Here's, approval that you can come. None of those people were actually on the to list at that point that were given to us prior to seating. So we're now juggling three different things, three different lists, plus, including people who are showing us emails and screenshots of saying that they can come because the email was sent by the client. And it was absolute mayhem, total chaos, because we were trying to figure out, what are we doing? And in addition to, do we have more people than what we accounted for food and beverage? So it was a complete disaster, because people were then going to whatever seat that they wanted to go to that was available, but that person had not necessarily arrived just yet. And so we're going to try to be as respectful and hospitable as possible to get them to the right table, because that table was not their table. They were sitting at sponsored tables, and sponsors had all their people that were there. So it wasn't a good look on, the client side, because the sponsors were being frustrated with people they didn't know that was then sitting at their tables. Of course, the guests were frustrated too, because they were told that they can come, but they didn't have the proper meal nor the proper table to sit at. And the hotel was like, what is going on? And we were like, what is going on? So it was total chaos. But ultimately, we finally figured out, where people can sit at and get them in their right tables. Of course, our hotel catering team was very gracious enough and, understood that it wasn't a fault on us, but they were trying to make sure that they got more food and the right food because of dietary restrictions to the people who needed it. But the fallout from that was really crazy. The hotel charged the clients because it was more food than what the clients had agreed to. Plus, it was beyond attrition and everything else. Whew, that was a lot happening. Of course, that was part of our feedback to our client on why the seating chart was essential, why making sure that we had place cards for people to understand what they were eating and for the butlers to know what to serve. The list goes on. And unfortunately, we had to let go of that client because they were not receptive to why we had things go the way that they went. And they also were not taking on responsorship and ownership of the aftermath of that and why things were so unorganized, especially because for onboarding, they just highlighted over and over again how important this award gala was and how important the organization was and etc. But they were the cause of the disorganization, and they weren't willing to take on the ownership of that and tried to blame it on us. And I was like, no, this is not the type of clients we want to be with, nor the type of position we want to be in, because it makes us look like we were disorganized when we provided you with all the tools to make sure that you remain organized. So chaos. Crazy.
Indeed. Mayhem times 10. Oh my gosh. And I have so many questions now. Okay,
Yes.
so before I start, you're like, my client didn't take responsibility. I was just remembering the other day, I had a client and she was like, they held like an event, probably like 20 plus events a year, a very, very small team, right? And she was like, they brought me in, they're like, yes, we want to create all this organization and structure. And it is super, super important. So I go and we use Smartsheet and all this stuff. And I create all these workbacks and use the templates and everybody's following them. And then she's getting super frustrated. And I'm like, well, what's going on? She's like, no, I don't want to have to follow the process, but everybody else needs to. And I'm like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. You're not going to have the results you want. This is a team. We succeed or we fail as a team, and you can't conditionally decide to not follow the rules and expect the outcome you expect. That's not a thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me start. How many people were supposed to be at the gala? Just kind of give me a little scope, because my mind is going crazy here.
I believe, if I can recall correctly, it was probably about 250 people that were at the gala. Yeah. if I can recall correctly.
So, yeah, I mean, that just kind of like a frame of reference, right? Are we talking 25 people? Obviously not. I could already tell that. We're talking 2,000 people. Can't even imagine that. Okay, so about 250 people, and then
No.
Had...
I'm sorry. I stand correct. Because this was the conference was larger than that. This was about 400 people that were in the conference that actually were invited because they were part of the conference to go there. So it was about 400 people. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So then you had a bunch of extra people show up, right, that were never on the initial list, right? You didn't have food orders for them, even when you account for dealing with attrition and extra, right? Everybody always has overages. So, but you didn't have tables, right? Because the last thing you want to do is have a bunch of empty tables sitting around at something like this. So, like, did you just have to go and start sourcing tables and call hotel management? Like, let's start, like, kind of step by step what that looked like.
Yeah, so we had to change the floor plan because one, it wasn't just the tables. It was tables, it was linen, it was chairs, it's flatware, it's table numbers.
Yeah.
All of those things we had to move around just to add people. And it wasn't like we were adding one table. This was like 30 something people that were coming in that we had no clue who were. So it was above what what you would normally allocate for extra for overage. It was well beyond that. And then we also had to work with the hotel in regards to what they were eating. So a lot of people feel like hotels have this absorbent amount of extra food, but we have to also understand waste. So hotels don't have, hundreds of different, plates readily available as just in case. They really stick to plan, and then they have a percentage for overage as just in case. So we were dealing with all of those things.
Wow. Yeah. So I assume, know what happens when you assume, but I assume that the people that were properly on the list, they got the food that they ordered. Is that right? And
yes,
then so you're
correct.
Just dealing, let's say, the 30 extra people, right? And then they sort of got, sorry, we're going to do our best in terms of like trying to meet dietary requirements.
Exactly. So it because with dietary, restrictions, those are very specific, and those definitely have to be done in advance so you can prepare for them. So some of the things that, people, whether it was a chicken dish, maybe everybody got a chicken dish, and maybe those with, who needed vegetarian or a particular dietary restriction probably only just got a soup or a salad and dessert because of the fact that they could not eat whatever the entree was. But that was what happened, because the hotel just was not prepared for that amount of overage.
Yeah. I'm gluten free, and so when I fly, sometimes for reasons unbeknownst to me, the airline never gets my order, right? And I've been on an international flight where they're like, here's your salad, and I'm like, this is a 10-hour flight. I'm not built for a salad in 10 hours. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Like, how did you handle the situation with like these last minute shower-uppers that sort of went to a random table, a sponsored table, right? Did they actually get physically moved to a new table, or did you just kind of let them be and start shuffling people around gently?
No, we had to move them to the table that was available for them. Because, when you're dealing with like a sponsored table, that sponsor has 10 people that they've invited for that particular table. So it wasn't even possible for us to keep them at that table because we had place cards there that identified a person's name as well as what food they were actually eating. So if that person was there, we couldn't have kept someone else who wasn't assigned to that table, as well as non-sponsored tables also. They got the same treatment. They had a place card. They had their meal already dedicated. The butlers for each of those tables had their banquet order or the table order already printed out that said what each person at that table was eating. So it wasn't even possible for us to keep them there. So I took on that ownership, as a lead planner, to move those people who went to a particular table on their own and escorted them to the right table while my team was still doing check-in and registration and trying to handle everyone who didn't make their way into the ballroom just yet. Yeah.
Right. So what was the reaction from kind of like these last minute attendees? Because obviously it's not their fault that the
Correct.
organizing client didn't have their act together. So how did they respond generally?
Yeah, some people were frustrated, and rightfully so, because no one wants to be made, invited to an event, especially it's a black tie event, red carpet and everything, to come to an event and then felt like they didn't belong or felt like they were an afterthought, to coming to such an event. So there was a level of frustration with that. But as the organizers, it was up to me to keep the situation as calm as possible, while also trying to start the program, because with such an issue as that could delay the start of the program, because people are still trying to shuffle around. I am the show caller. I am the one who gets the program started on time, with cues, with AV, and with speakers, and my team also being backstage. I had to pull my team from backstage, who handles like the MC, the host, the speakers, to help come support this particular thing. So all of us were in front of house versus being in back of house. I'm never in front of house. I'm on back of house trying to make sure AV and everybody else is good to go. So I took that upon myself to make sure that all those particular guests still felt honored, still felt respected, but also moved to the proper table and got the proper meals that were, I guess, possible to give them during that time.
Yeah, no, I would totally be ridiculously frustrated. And so,
Oh yeah.
like, how were those additional lists, like, obviously given to you, but like, what was the communication style when these lists came in from the client? I'm just astonished at that courage, to be honest. Right? Here, we're gonna blow up your entire program. Good luck. Like.
It was their program, so it's
Yeah.
they brought us lists that were printed out, and it was different from what we had, because whenever we do any type of program, especially for multi-day events, we do the next day, the day prior. So we go over everything the day prior, just so that way everybody's on the same page, and then we do a brief regurgitation of that the morning of. So we had everything. Everybody was on the same page. Everybody was fully aware. So that afternoon, at the conclusion of the conference for that day, we began setting up for the gala. So this is all the decor and everything. And then at the conclusion of that is when we started, our client came out and gave us a list and say, hey, the list has changed. Here are some additional people that we invited. Here are the tables that we want to put them at. And then we went and used that list to then confirm if that made sense based off of the seating chart that was, again, printed out, 10 feet by 20 feet long, seating chart, and tried to work those discrepancies. But then in the midst of working those discrepancies between my team as well as with the hotel, our client brought out another list, and it was like, this is an update to the previous list that we gave you. And we're like, okay, I'm the type of person that I'm going to be very frank with people, respectful and tactful, but also let people know, including my clients, know, hey, this is what we're being faced with, and this is the reality of the situation. We're going to work through that, but I need to know that there's not going to be any more changes, because this is literally 15, 20 minutes before registration starts, for check-in for that particular award show. So we can only do so much, and I want to be able to set clear expectations about that. And so that's how it was. And then it wasn't until like maybe 20 minutes into checking in did we start to get that flow of people that were like, hey, we got an email. Here's a screenshot. Here's the email of people, from the client side saying that we can come, and us just having to deal with that. And at that point, it wasn't me trying to go back and forth with the client to see, if these people were approved or anything like that. It was more reactionary, and trying to make sure that if they got, they showing us proof that a client emailed them saying that they can come, that they were properly seated at a table, not necessarily the table that they thought that they were going to be seated at, but a table, so that way they can enjoy the gala with everyone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I once did an event a few years ago, nothing at this kind of like level of luxury, but just a basic tech conference. And like they were like that morning, like sending me email lists of people. And I'm like, this name doesn't match, but it might be this name because it's spelled differently, right? And it was just like, because we had an online registration system and I'm in there like trying to manually adjust registrations. And some people weren't in there at all. Some people were registered under a different name. It was just like totally a hot mess, which brings me to my event tech hat. So did you have like an online system where you were tracking like the initial 400 people, or was this all like in spreadsheets? Okay. So then when somebody showed up to like check in, it's like, hi, I'm John Smith, right? It's like, well, hi, Mr. Smith. We don't see your name in the system. Did you maybe have an email invite? And then were they like frantically trying to get them into the system for data integrity? Or were you just like collecting cards and like, I'll deal with it later? I mean, how did that happen?
So we use Cvent and their check-in system. So most people, you know, on the conference side had emails with QR codes. So we had, you know, iPads up, everybody just scanned QR codes. We confirmed they went in. Our check-in was literally 30 seconds or less. But with people who were invited that weren't a part of the conference, they also got emails that was sent via Cvent with a QR code. So they were fine, you know, as far as the sponsor side, the sponsors who, you know, invited however many people, all of those people had a QR code because we knew we were expecting them, you know, to come. Everyone else who were given to us via the printed sheets or those who showed a email or a screenshot of them being invited, we didn't even have a chance to plug them into the Cvent system because we didn't have time. Honestly, because it would have taken too much time for us to try to plug them in and then try to find them a table. We just verified who they were, verified if they were on the list or whatever, and then went to table assignments.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, right, because of course being the tech person, I'm like, well, how did that data get into the CRM system? But the client already probably had it because it was in the printed sheet. And then
maybe so.
From there to reconcile. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Yeah. Okay. So did the program actually end up starting late?
Yes, the program started late. I mean,
of course. I don't know how else it wouldn't.
Yeah, boils my blood because I am very particular on starting on time. I live by starting on time. So I believe the program started maybe 30 or 45 minutes late. Like it was late. But the good thing about that is that I made up for time. But then as I make this event overall was not the best event. As I made up for time, because again, I'm show caller, I'm the one telling everybody what to do, speakers, all of that. But then it got to the point that the script that the client had approved prior to, because we did a full rehearsal, everybody was on time with AV, with speakers and everything, and we went through everything. The script was changed. I did not know that the script was changed. And it was given to AV. AV did not tell me that the script was changed. So what was happening is that the host, the MC, was reading information that was incorrect. So, for example, the MC would say, and at this time, we're going to have a video from our sponsor shown now. There was no video. Like, I'm looking because I look ahead on our script to see what's coming up because I have to tell AV, you know, to get ready for what's coming up, especially for IMAG and all that kind of stuff. Nothing was there. And there were several occasions where our MC was reading, because we had a teleprompter, was reading from the teleprompter saying things that was about to happen that my script did not say and that was not actually happening. So the script that was given was incorrect. So I had to force an intermission during the award ceremony because it was clear not only to me and to the MC and to AV, but now to the audience that something was not right. And so I said automatically intermission, told my team on the behind the scenes backstage area to then tell MC to put it in a teleprompter that we're going into an intermission, and that allowed catering to pause, take a break, catch up, but also us on the back end, because I had to work with my teleprompter, I had to work with my AV and my MC to get everybody on the same page with the right script. So we did a 15-minute intermission to get everything to where it's supposed to be with the client, because at that point, my lead AV person was like furious because of all the last minute changes that was happening on the client side. So we had to make those changes because I needed my AV lead with a cool head, because we still had programming. We still had tons of awards that had to be given out, as well as sponsor videos and speakers that had to be a part of that. So we had to get it done. So we went into intermission, fix all the issues so that way our MC, because again, as an MC, that would have been embarrassing for me to be on stage in front of 400 plus people saying something was about to happen that never actually happened, that we weren't, no slides, no video, nothing that was for that. So we got everything on the right page within those 15 minutes. Yeah.
That is amazing. And congratulations to you for your professionalism to understand like what had to happen. And you know what? We just need a few minutes to regroup here because this is going further and further off the rails.
Yeah.
So let me ask you. So you said that your client basically didn't take accountability for any of it. So now walk me to, so now we're going to fast forward. We're going to assume that the rest of the show finished brilliantly because of course it did.
It did.
Charge.
It did.
Right?
It did.
So then, but talk about like the like whatever you can share about kind of the post conversations with your client and just like, I love hearing this part, I'll be honest.
Yeah, no. So at every event, a brand event, a corporate event, nonprofit, association, whatever it is that we do a out brief. And that out brief is us presenting what was supposed to happen, what did happen, and what measures of improvement can occur for the next one. And so it takes us about 2 weeks in order to compile this report, because it's not just what Andrew and his team is saying. We talk to a hotel, we talk to the venue if it's a standalone venue, we talk to every vendor partner, including AV, about their experience, because we want to give our clients the full picture, not just one-sided from the planning, organization about what took place. And so we compiled all of this and got all of the vendors to put in their input and just gave the big picture of what took place. We drafted this up into a document, and normally what we do is we present this document and we host this meeting collectively. So it's not just, hey, this is what we've collected, boom, let's send this out via email, and then, that's it. No, we have an actual meeting that's scheduled that goes over all of these things, because we also want our clients to give feedback too, because they're part of that process. So we tried to schedule the meeting, did not happen. But nevertheless, we still submitted the document to our clients, because it's their document. They should have this information to go on. We asked them, we followed up, hey, is this something that we can discuss, so that way, everyone has their say in this, and that we can make sure that this doesn't occur, on the next time, because it wasn't just the gala that was part of issues that we recognized with the particular client. There were sizing issues in regards to room size and overpacking the rooms with people that shouldn't have been in the space, but again, allowed to come into the space because of last minute registration. They were registered. That wasn't out of the blue or anything like that. We printed, badges and stuff on site, but the scale of the event to comparison to the hotel was growing. And the partnership that what they had with that hotel had run its course. It needed a bigger hotel. It needed more space. So things like that was part of our assessment as well. But they never wanted to have the meeting. And, I spoke with my team, and afterwards we just collectively decided that this wasn't a client that we needed to move forward with, because they were not receptive to not only having the closeout meeting, but acknowledging some of the missteps that took place during this conference. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, since day one in events, it's always been, we succeed or we fail as a team. I said this or something similar at the beginning of the call, right? And that includes our client teams. Yeah, I do the same thing. Like I go and I start on site. You wouldn't have had time this time, but I start on site, like taking notes, like this is what went right. I like to celebrate what did go right. And then what went wrong. And I go out to like all of our teams. I go to our content teams. I go to our exhibitor teams. I go to everybody and I get like their feedback. Like, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? You know, where can the client, because the client has to take responsibility. I mean, I feel sorry for whoever has picked up this event since then, because I am sure that it did not probably go any differently.
I doubt it. it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I've loved hearing about your process and like how you did all the pre-work with the client, right? You had the pre-meeting, you did the whole run of show with them, you walked through everything, you ticked every box, right? You did everything, and still mayhem shows up.
Yeah. And we expect mayhem. You know, sometimes I don't believe in perfect events. I don't. I believe that things will happen. What I want to control is the thing and how they happen and when they happen. I want to control those things, and some things changes. They're going to happen. Maybe the agenda changes, stuff like that. Perfect. Fine. Let us know. We adjust, we adapt, we move forward. But it's the things that we had no idea would happen that makes for very bad events. You know, if we don't, we're going to anticipate there are going to be a couple of people that may show up to a gala or whatever that have been invited last minute. Certainly not a problem. We anticipate that overage. But when it goes to having 30-40% overage, then we anticipate it, then that's where the mayhem happens. When it comes to being disorganized after we have provided you with a very organized plan of action and a strategic plan, that's when mayhem happens. So it's not like, hey, you guys should have been better at organizing and making sure these things were done. They were done. It's when you don't follow the plan that it becomes very chaotic.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, you are 100% right. And I want to thank you for taking your time to be here today on Mayhem and Method, where we have demonstrated both beautifully today. I'd like to give you a minute to tell my audience where they can get in touch with you and learn more about you and what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is at Andrew Roby Events, which is our website, and pretty much everything on social media, whether it's Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook, is at Andrew Roby Events.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening in to another roller coaster someone else rode so you don't have to. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to rate, review, subscribe, and share so other event pros can find the show. Until next time, tame the mayhem.
Audiotocracy.